Mary says, "This situation is complicated. Why didn't you just stand still, Matt?" Sam adds, "Don't blame him, Mary. If any of us were in Matt's shoes, we also wouldn't know what to do and would act that way. Now that we have found each other, we have to figure out how to get out of this situation," Sam adds. Taking out a pen and paper from the kitchen drawer, Sam decides to write out the possibilities one by one on the A4 sheet he puts on the kitchen counter. Matt is where we all are. Let's call it point A. When he goes to the kitchen, the two possibilities that Matt just mentioned come to the light. Then, when he goes back to the hall, four possibilities appear. Isn't it true, Matt? Matt says, "Yes, very true. The possibilities will increase with each room change. Therefore, since I did not know my time, I thought it would be the best choice to remain still at some point." Sam continues, "When we go from the living room to the kitchen for the last time, it also shows us two last possibilities that we need to take care of. So we have 5 possibilities in." Mary says, "I'm confused. It feels like we will stay here forever." Sam says, "Let's start working. Making mistakes pushes us into more possibilities, so we have no chance of making mistakes. We must eliminate all 5 possibilities by simplifying them in the correct order." Mary speaks, "I think at this point we should remember what we knew before. When we went downstairs from the room upstairs, there was a time difference of about 60 times. Matt, tell me this. How long do you think it's been while you've been here?" Matt answers, "I know how much time has passed, because if you put a man in a place like this, he has nothing to do but count the time. It has been more than 10 years. What I don't know is, even if we consider the elapsed time in terms of the 30 seconds it took for you, how to take that into account since I changed rooms more than once." Then Sam realizes something. Why, when we came from the living room to the kitchen, did we see you sitting in the garden in a state of mourning, but at a time that we were sure was ahead of us? Because no matter what happens, you have to be ahead. Therefore, we can eliminate the possibility of going back in time. That's the option where you go back to the past every time. Because you can't go back to the past all the time. If you go in a linear line at this point, you wouldn't be sitting in the garden when we come into the kitchen. You would stay behind us. At some point, you must have chosen a path that has been ahead of us for years. Or if we include the waiting period, you should have enough time to get ahead of us for a while. This restricted us to 4 options. Matt says, "When I first left you and went to the kitchen, there was beautiful sunlight hitting the kitchen window, just like in the living room. I went back to the living room and couldn't find you. The weather still looked the same." Matt continues to speaking. "When I came back to the kitchen, it was raining and stormy. The season had changed. At this point, my theory is that the moment I went to the kitchen after leaving you, and in the living room when I came to check on you, I added an unknown to our common time. And when I went back to the kitchen, on top of that, I added a single unknown. I tried to solve this for years." Sam says, "Another thing I'm curious about is the cave. Mary, what did you experience when you entered the cave? This must have something to do with what we experienced. Because we came home from there, and suddenly things evolved." Mary answers, "I remember actually spending about 20 seconds in the cave. As I progressed a little further, I did not understand how it happened, but I could not see the entrance of the cave. Before I could understand what was happening, I found myself next to you at the entrance of the cave. Since it was dark outside, I didn't find the situation strange. Now that I think about it, it makes sense that everything started in that cave. We experienced it the first time difference there." Sam tells, "Then Matt came when Monday morning we went downstairs from my upstairs room. If we consider the cave as the beginning, we should go back to that moment when everything started and not enter the cave. Mary says I should not enter the cave. Matt adds, so, in a linear line, the cave is the beginning that moves forward, and the moment I first go to the kitchen is the point that creates change. The earliest date we can go in the evening will be that Monday morning when you opened the door to me, if we can make it to that Monday morning, of course. There is no way to go back. Sam says there might be a way. It is risky, but it may be the only option we have. You said you didn't jump over the garden wall because you didn't know what would happen. If one of us does this, there's a chance we will see whether it takes us to the past or the future. He continues. Still, the only way to prevent us from going back to before the cave and entering it is to stretch our nation. What we need to do is to return to the starting point. We saw that even though we do not have knowledge about going to the past, when we're passing between rooms in the house, we can last time. Matt said he's been waiting here for years. If after waiting 30 seconds, we come to the kitchen next to Matt, we see him here, having waited 10 years, this somehow shows us that we are 60 times less than Matt's 10-year time period. Changing our location from the living room to the kitchen.